She says she's going to play the mental health card. Now, anyone who's been following this stuff knows that whenever, say, a very big black man stabs an army officer almost to death, the mental health card comes out. Let's say things like that, the mental health card comes out. Where have we heard anything more about the Southport attacker? No, the mental health card comes out. Everything is mental health. We understand it. Welcome back to Fast Jet Performance. Then my name is Tim Davies, and as you can see, we are back in the attack shack, dropping truth bombs on your personal battlefields, helping you to win the wars you're fighting. And someone whose wars we need to help is a lady called Lucy Connolly. She's only 41 years old. She's an English woman, a British woman, who sent a tweet out that our government didn't like, and they've sentenced her now to 31 months in jail. She's already spent 3, I think, July, so August, September, October. The girl's been in jail for 3 months already. I'm going to stick in this video to narratives that are written by other people. Newspapers, the Justice Sentencing Report. I'm going to speak to the CPS narrative they put out as well. I'm not going to freestyle on this, guys. I'll do that in the car later. And the reason I want to make this video is that when I'm in the car, I'm going to be speaking to you about how I feel about it, but I've got to be able to refer you back to facts and evidence, and this is what we have here. Let's get on with it. Lucy Connolly then, she was a childminder, I think, 41 years old, as I said. She's been sentenced to Birmingham Crown Court after pleading guilty. Now, this is important. She pleaded guilty. This is important. I'll tell you why, because it does affect the sentencing and some other things. The fact she didn't have a jury trial, for example, was that she did plead guilty. And I think if she hadn't pleaded guilty, then she'd probably gone to a jury trial. And I think if that jury is made up of English men and women, they probably wouldn't have found her guilty. Now, they may have done, but I want to just stick to the facts. And basically, she made the offence on the day of the Southport attacks. Remember when there was a Welshman, shall we say, who killed 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift dance party? I did a video on that before, and then wounded like 9 others. A second-generation immigrant, I think, if I'm correct in there. The wife of a Conservative Party councillor then has been jailed for 2.5 years. What's it matter if that she's the wife of a... I don't understand why they've got to bring that Conservative Party councillor thing in. If you're in America, this is very interesting. I can't see how this isn't happening to you guys later as well. This is, to me, sentenced to 31 months imprisonment. 31 months imprisonment. Absolutely crazy. I think she's got to serve 40% of that in jail, and then she'll be out on license. So 40% of 31 is 12.4. 0.4 of a month is 12. So 12 months and 12 days in prison, and then she'll be out on license for that. I think the maximum sentence on this was 4 years, and that can be reduced to 50% because she pleaded guilty. So the judge has given her 40% of that sentence, so he's been a bit lenient for previous conduct, which was good, and some other aspects, I guess, as well. The fact she pleaded guilty, probably. Now, she actually wrote a post, and we're going to read that post, but I'm not going to read it from a newspaper. I'm not stupid. I'm going to go across to the sentencing that came out, and we're going to read about what she did. You can see there, she made the comments on the day which 3 children were stabbed to death during a Taylor Swift-themed dance party. Now, the thing about it is, this is covered in the guidelines. Let's have a look. There's not many. I'm not going to go through them all, but there's only about 3 pages. We're going to condense them, keep this video less than 10 minutes. What the the judge here says in Birmingham, it was a Crown trial because of the severity of the offence. He says you pleaded guilty to the offence of distributing material, it's the important bit now, with the intention of stirring up racial hatred. That, I'm not overly convinced that's true. He is. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to go to jail. The thing that kind of upsets me here, as everyone is aware, some people use that tragedy as an opportunity to sow division and hatred, often used in social media, leading to a number of towns and cities being disfigured by mindless and racist violence, intimidation and damage, which has been summarised by the prosecution today. Fine. Listen to this next bit. Listen to this next bit. It is strength of our society that is both diverse and inclusive. There is always a very small minority of people who will seek to excuse to use violence and disorder, causing injury, damage, loss and fear to wholly innocent members of the public, and sentences for those who incite racial hatred and disharmony in our society are intended to both punish and deter. Diverse and inclusive. It's well within the civil service. It's well within the Home Office. It's all over the world now. You can't get away from it, can you? So apparently, diversity is our strength. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave that there. I'll talk about it in the car a bit later. Okay, 8:30 p.m. Maybe I should have a glass of wine, I don't know. 29th of July this year, she basically wrote, and I'm careful what I say now, guys, because I don't want to get shut down by YouTube, so I'm going to miss out a few words on here. You fill in the blank spaces. She wrote, mass deportation now. Set to all the hotels full of the for all I care. While you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. I feel physically sick knowing what these families will now have to endure. If that makes me racist, so be it. I think maybe when I do publish video, YouTube's going to put a warning on it and demonetize it. In which case, guys, you won't get to see it. I'm sorry. When you publish those words, you're well aware of how volatile the situation was. I wasn't that aware of it, and I was following it quite closely. It did kick off. That's a British term for things got a bit, bit busy. That's another British term for things, agitated, a bit of violence, that kind of stuff, right? As everyone is aware, the volatility led to serious disorder in a number of areas of the country where mindless violence was used to cause injury and damage a whole incident. Yeah, we've done that bit. She didn't know how many people were going to read her message, but it was read 310,000 times with reposts, quotes, etc. In fact, one of the dudes who reposted this got 36 months in jail. I'm not even joking. That actually happened. That happened. Someone reposted it, got 36 months in jail. Then it says that she deleted the account. The police found out that she'd done it, everything else, and it was up for 3.5 hours. And she says she's going to play the mental health card. Now, anyone who's been following this stuff knows that whenever, say, a very big black man stabs an army officer almost to death, the mental health card comes out. Let's say things like that. The mental health card comes out. Where have we heard anything more about the Southport attacker? No, the mental health card comes out. Everything is mental health. We understand it. So she's saying, I'll play the mental health card because it seems to work for everyone else that is, say, of not British descent, causing a massive amount of crimes. I'm just putting this out, guys. These are just facts. This is not my opinion now. I'm just reading what she said. I don't want to get in trouble or nothing, you know what I'm saying? Mitigation. She's now 41 years of old. It's clearly a mitigating factor that she has no previous convictions, which is true. Now, character references for her were very good. Also, they speak of her as a caring person, including for those who she acted as a childminder for. Good family, young daughter, undoubtedly missing her terribly, so we acknowledge that. Taking into account this will be the first time you've been in prison with present circumstances. Interesting bit coming up. You have had tragedy in your own life with the loss of your very young child some years ago. I've read the psychiatric reports from some 12 years ago as to the psychiatric difficulties you then suffered. I accept that you still very keenly feel that loss. Then she says there's no evidence she's suffering from psychiatric factors. Well, you have to remember as well, I did read, I don't know how true this is, so it alleges that what happened with a child, the child had I think a fluid issue, I think it's dehydrated, and they sent the child home telling it to feed it rice and yogurts, and apparently the NHS doctors that did that, I've read allegedly were of immigrant descent. That's what allegedly was said. So she has this feeling apparently towards what she sees as immigrants. He then talks about how he sentenced her to 31 months imprisonment and she'll serve 40% of that sentence, and then she'll remain on licence for the rest of the time. Let's go to the CPS's report. We'll quickly gallop through this and I'll leave you guys. So, a woman who admitted inciting racial hatred after using social media to post about setting fires to hotels housing asylum seekers following the Southport stabbings has been jailed for 2 years and 7 months. 2.4 years, 31 months. That's what it is. So Lucy Connolly, 41, posted on X just hours after the killings, having encountered false information online. That's what she found. It was false information. Everyone was reading the same thing. Everyone thought it was an illegal immigrant that had done this. That said, the killer had been a Muslim asylum seeker who'd come to the country on a boat. That's what everyone was reading at the time. I remember reading that as well. In her now deleted post, she called for mass deportation. It's called remigration. That's something that politicians have been calling for. And to set fire to hotels housing immigrants. She added, if that makes me racist, so be it. Now, it's not illegal to be racist. It's illegal to enact racism on people, but you can be racist if you want to. So that's not an illegal thing. That she can be racist. We can be racist. You can be racist all over the place. But to enact racist policies such as, for example, the Royal Air Force stopping white men joining and prioritising ethnic minorities, that kind of racism is illegal. But this kind of racism isn't illegal. All right. So what she did here wasn't illegal. Calling for hotels housing immigrants to be burnt down. Yes, that is the incitement of violence and goes against these acts, which we'll look at in a second. Now, they say it was intended to stir up racial hatred. Fine. I don't know whether she was doing that, to be fair, whether she felt she was doing that. However, she was interviewed, she was charged, she pleaded guilty to this. Obviously, she was advised to plead guilty to get a lesser sentence. And they've obviously shown her and said this is actually factually what's guilty. Now, I'm not overly convinced that's true, and I'll tell you why. Using threatening, abusing, or insulting language to rile up racism online is unacceptable and is breaking the law. We know that. Incitement of violence onto people based on their race is breaking the law. During the police interview, Lucy Connolly stated she had strong views on immigration. Nothing wrong with that. Told officers she did not like illegal immigrants and claimed that children were not safe for them. Nothing wrong with that. Not incitement of violence. Nothing wrong with that. It's not an offence to have strong or differing political views, but it is an offence to incite racial hatred. And that's what Connolly admitted doing. I think they needed her to admit this. The prosecution case included evidence which showed that racist tweets were sent out from Mrs. Connolly's ex account both in the weeks and months before the Southport attacks and well in the days after. You can be racist. That's not an offence. Connolly wrongly thought that she could escape justice by hiding behind a screen, but today she pleaded guilty and admitted her crime. She will now face the consequences of her actions. I think if she hadn't admitted it, if she hadn't pleaded guilty, I don't think personally she'd be there. I think she needs, let's follow up with, I think they needed her to plead guilty. Let's follow up with one thing from David Starkey here. And I'm going to leave you this with David Starkey and then I'm going to go and I'll do a car one later and I'll post it back to here. But listen to what David Starkey says about our Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
I've never met Keir Starmer, I'm delighted to say, but we have, as they say, previous. At the time of my cancellation back in 2020, Starmer was the only person in public life who wanted poor little Darren Grimes and me to be charged under the Section 6 of the Public Order Act, which I think carries mandatory imprisonment and up to 6 years. That is the measure of the man, the measure of his nastiness, the measure of his desire for vengeance, the measure of his hatred of free speech and his general hatred of freedom.
That's all I'm saying about Lucy in this one, guys. But, you know, as I said, helping people fight their personal battles here in the Attack Shack, and probably got to lean in a little bit to Lucy as an English woman, as English men. That's all I'm saying. Tim Davies, Fast Jet Performance.